hope everyone is doing really well tonight, and I hope you're excited for a new story. Tonight we are heading across the many multiple planes of the material multiverse here in the Dungeons and Dragons world, and we'll be doing so by exploring a whole new character named Adda, and she's a very well-traveled bard. And so through her eyes, we'll get to explore several very interesting worlds and her own little unique journey that she's taken this past year. And through that, hopefully we'll get to see some very cool and interesting things, because Adda is quite a bit of an academic despite being a bard and a musician. After all, being a musician does not mean we are not necessarily an intellectual. As many of our musician friends know, you have to be very studious when you're studying the fine arts. And Adda, sorry, got hung up on academic there. Adda very much does pursue her studious work and loves to learn and explore. And so that's taken her on some very incredible adventures, and we get to explore that a little bit tonight. And in honor of that, I'm doing a little exploring of my own with a painting, and I'm looking back at some old techniques I haven't practiced in a while, so I get to see if that bears any interesting fruit tonight, and perhaps it will, and perhaps it won't. As far as announcements go, our friends must remember that in 2 weeks' time it is Genghis Khan out in Colorado, so don't forget that we may or may not be streaming in 2 Fridays from now. I believe that's the 25th, correct me if I'm wrong. I am not so good with dates and numbers. I am good with days of the weeks. So I do know 2 Fridays is the Genghis Khan day 2, and so there may or may not be streaming. I am wondering if any of you friends would like to see a pre-recording, either an old adventure replayed, or would you like to see a recording of something interesting and new? So would you like to see me record a story and play it back for you on that night that I'm at the convention? Or would you like to just see some interesting things? For example, would you like me to show you interesting painting technique? Or would you like me to show you how to ink some dice? Something I've been practicing lately, as some of you know. Or would you like me to show you something different, just short and sweet, and a little something to pass the time as I'm off on adventures of my own, and I'm sure many of you will be as well. Who knows, maybe I will see some of you in the convention halls. That would be wonderful. Until then, let me know, throw that in our suggestion jar. I would very much like to hear from you. And for now, until tonight, let's head back into Adda, and the tale to be told begins thus. All right, and just as a reminder, when I'm introducing these types of characters, I am speaking very much in their first person type of voice, and oftentimes they may say or do things that seem a little bit strange or interesting to our perspective. So just remember that these are their personal opinions, not necessarily my personal opinions. So as I'm telling Adda's story, I'll jump back and forth from her voice to my voice just a little bit. Feel free to throw some comments into the chat as we're talking and painting together. When we first meet Adda, she is a very, very young child. And As she tells her story, she might say, I remember the day like it was yesterday. Just a few children on the streets, too broken or too different to truly belong. Some would beg, others play music for coin. As the smallest, I would sneak through the crowd, pocketing any valuables I could find. It wasn't an easy life for a child, but it was a fun one. But one day, I pickpocketed the wrong mark. Then everything changed. I thought the massive bandit captain would kill me, or worse, but instead, he raised me in his bandit brigade to be a charming lure. I've been particularly useful in dealing with our sullen fence, who works out of a local tavern. Once I'm finished soothing tempers, both Unif and our fence are satisfied with the day's negotiations. I'm quite useful in calming their tempers. Now, Adda was eventually trained to be a bard, and as bards are quite useful distractions, as she says, a charming lure, she was words are sometimes tricky, you guys. She was often used in more of, shall we say, the con man persuasions, and she was in the more bandit persuasions. It wasn't unusual for her to be sent to the more highbrow side of town to distract the noble men or ladies while she played, so that the bandits could sneak among the crowd, pick a few pockets, snatch a few purses, and see what they could get away with before they were being chased from the halls. And since she was a bit of a master of disguise, she could blend in and get away with a few things that perhaps the average bard would not be able to do. She had quite a few tricks of the trade. When I first got to meet her, she was masquerading as a young man named Bix, and she was definitely not what you would call an adventurer or a hero. Very deep in with Unif's bandit brigade, she was attempting to raid an adventurer's, well, shall we call it, safe hidey hole, trying to steal as many different things as she possibly could. Unfortunately for Adda, but perhaps fortunately for us, she got herself rather neatly tied up in vines and was not able to succeed in stealing nary a thing from that safe house. She did rather succeed into burning it down, though. Poor things. Well, it's not every adventure that ends in success, after all, and sometimes those are the best adventures, the ones that fail and rather go up in smoke, if you'll pardon my pun. Luckily for us, she does run back into Suk. Now, a note about Suk. He is a changeling, but that's not something Adda really recognizes at first. And he is quite a lovely fence. He's good at taking even the most mundane items, recognizing their true value, and getting the most bang for your buck, or shall we say gold coins for your buck. Meeting him later, he recognizes that Unif and his brigands are using Adda for her unique talents, and tries to get her away from them. He tries to convince her that she has some very unique and special skills of her own, and that she might be better in service to herself than to some big scoundrel like Unif. She's not entirely convinced. After all, she's lived a life of a con woman, and she knows that even someone as kindly as Suk, could very well have a few cons up his sleeve as well. But she does trust him a little bit. Eventually, she allows him to show her a few of those tricks and says, "Today is another day I'll never forget. After sneaking away from the bandits, I went to meet Suk at his tavern. He told me I'm a changeling, whatever that is, and promised to show me 1,000 new things. I thought he was mad at first, but after some convincing, I began to think that my ability to disguise was something more than just some tricks of the trade. So we planned our greatest con, buy my freedom, and all it cost was a favorite dagger. We have so many plans. Suk is going to teach me how to read. Maybe I'll learn new magics, or even a new language. Suk insisted I master my shifting abilities before any adventures were had. He pointed out an orc huntress drinking in the tavern and asked I memorize her face. I had never changed into another race before and was really nervous. He took me to a back room where we practiced breathing until I was able to do it. With some calming meditation, I successfully changed into the huntress. A whole new world of knowledge awaits us. I'm glad a friend like Suk is here with me on this journey. He's even rather cute. Now together, Adda and Suk do go on some misadventures, as she labels them. Heading to Baldur's Gate, they're able to meet up with some other adventurers, and on the first time on the right side of the law, Adda learns that she rather does enjoy playing the hero. She does learn a few new languages, perhaps rather more languages than she really ought to be learning, and quite a few new magics. And she continues to learn some tricks of the trade, eventually learning the name Adda of the Road and becoming a College of the Road bard. With some inspiration by her friend Zalti, she eventually even becomes a bit roguish along the way. Now, her journey isn't quite over. One way or another, she does eventually cross different planes and even learns how to cross into different areas of the multiverse. Now, the multiverse may not be something we necessarily can travel across, but Adda does become quite adept at it. She travels into areas that have lots and lots of water, and some areas that have zero water at all. And one of her most favorite planes to travel across is one that's almost exclusively desert. And this is a world that is known as, if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, give me a moment, Nimatsiola. Now, this area was once a place completely covered in jungles, but unfortunately a catastrophe changed the area completely, and now it is mostly a desert wasteland. But for Adda, it's the most beautiful place in the world, and she stays there for quite some time, and even makes a friend, Shirley the turtle. And Shirley sends her on quite a few missions, trying to help recover different artifacts from temples, chase down some mysterious monsters, and, well, generally just explore the area and try to keep it safe after the Great Shake. This is, of course, the catastrophe that changed the region. But all great things do come to the end. And while Adda, Zalti in tow, do have some wonderful adventures here, exploring the region, documenting lost ruins, and, of course, learning some new tricks of the trade. Eventually, they do make it back to the usual material realms that we all know and love from studying the stories and lore of Faerun. And this is, of course, where Adda's journey becomes a little more complicated. Well, as Adda is growing up and becoming a little more experienced, she becomes known as a traveler. Adda of the Road, of course, and people are becoming aware that she has some abilities and experience with crossing the plains. And sometimes that can be a wonderful thing, but it can get you into trouble, unfortunately. Now, in the hopes of trying to have a little bit of help in the Feywilds, Adda is sent to try to, well, deal with someone very dangerous who's been causing a bit of a muddle over in the Feywild regions. And so, with a team of adventurers, she's sent out that way. She is much more experienced, has honed her roguish abilities, perhaps even knows a bit more about the use of daggers and archery. But sometimes having too much knowledge can be a bad thing or even a dangerous thing. And I'm afraid that as charming as she can get herself in a wee bit of trouble. And that's what happens when her and her friends do try to chase down Baba Yaga. After all, you don't go after Tasha's patron without having a little bit of a backup plan. Luckily, everyone does make it out alive, and we'll never really know if those mystery plants that Adda consumed along the way will ever do her a significant amount of harm. But we are hopeful, fingers crossed, that they don't do any serious damage. After all, curiosity isn't always a bad thing. Sometimes it gives you some pretty cool magical abilities. But let's just say Adda was a little more curious than she should have been in the Feywilds. And sadly, that curiosity continues to bite her in the booty as she heads back to the material planes. Because she's asked for help in exploring a particularly mysterious tower. As we, don't say... Sorry, excuse me, allergies. She's learning that when you go into certain towers, you should maybe not pick up certain magical books, or you should not be reading certain magical books, even if certain trusted rangers hand them to you. Let me back up a little bit. When the local dignitary asks them to look into a tower that's very unusually dragged off into Limbo, she and a few friends attempt to try to figure out what is going on. Now, luckily for Adda, she's got quite a few tricks of the trade under her belt, so she's able to help keep her friends safe. They're quite some powerful friends, too, so there are no weaklings in this fight. But there's tricks and turns and dangers everywhere that they go, and they almost fall several times while trying to navigate the twists and turns and corridors and threats and traps that they find everywhere as they go. And, unfortunately, it seems that even the things that are meant to be clues can oftentimes be a trap in and of themselves. And if you're not careful in investigating and looking through every single clue, sadly, it's quite easy to fall into those traps. And that's exactly what happens. When the Ranger Carter tried to read a particular book, but found it was in a language he couldn't understand, he tried to hand it to our true academic bard, but unfortunately, she couldn't quite read it either. Well, when she did read it, she found herself rather enthralled to someone that maybe you should not be enthralled to. At the risk of psychic damage, we're gonna just say she was enthralled to excuse me, allergies. And with that, she lured certain friends that sadly we may never see again off to a certain chamber. And while there, she appeared to have been slain by a certain someone who seems to be giving me weird allergies. How strange. And then, when that happens, he brought her back to life. Now, she is very clever at the ruse. They don't call her a con woman for nothing. And sadly, in the end, all of her friends lay dead, and Adda lay enthralled to, well, someone mysterious. Now, we don't know if Adda is officially still enthralled to certain someones or not. After all, that's the last I personally have ever heard of her. I don't know where her story goes from there. Perhaps she's still somewhere out there in Limbo, enthralled to certain someones and learning mysterious things that perhaps she should not be learning. Or perhaps she found a way to escape. After all, she did master quite a few tricks of the trade along the way, and she even managed to learn quite a few roguish disguises along the way. And you never know, with time and mastery, perhaps she could escape that enthrallment. Or perhaps she lies there still, waiting for some hero to come and save her. We never know. Some mysteries are best left unsolved. All right, friends. It's almost time to see how these paintings are turning out. As you can see, I tried something new with panels. After all, a bard who has traveled many realms deserves a little bit of something extra. So we're going to go to intermission. I'm going to deal with the little bit of water that I need, set up a bit of a protective equipment. You will see why when we come back, and I will catch you all in about 2 or 3 minutes. Alrighty, guys. See you then. All right. Hello, everyone. I hope we're doing well. I see that the music is still not working. Shocker. Okay, let's see if that makes it work. Okay, there we go. Hopefully that will turn on in half a moment. In the meantime, so this is the paintings that I've been working on. They are totally dry and have been sitting for a while, and we will get into that in just a moment. I have got my paper towel here. I put just a little water on it because it's going to catch something and I want it to stick on here. So we're going to have to work a little bit quickly so that doesn't dry out. You will see what I mean in a second. Yay! In the meantime, I would like to show you the painting I've been working on for last week. So it didn't quite turn out the way I wanted it to. So far, everyone kind of seems to like it. I just kind of feel like this area came out. I used the term blobby last week. Undefined. Let's go with undefined. And because I use such dark colors, I'm just not sure I can really clean that up very much. There is a downside to watercolor. If I had more gouache paint, which is sort of like this in between acrylic and watercolor, I could probably layer that on top and sort of clean it up a little bit. But like this corner is so dark, I can't really do much to it. Sorry, there's like something stuck there. It's like, it's as dark as it's gonna be. Like, there's nothing else I can really do, and that's okay. Sometimes things don't turn out the way you intended, but there's still something to be learned from that, and there's still something beautiful about it. Like, I have such nice lines, I think, from the tree trunks, and I've been working really hard on improving that. So I do think something wonderful came from this, even if it wasn't what I intended. So that's okay. Sometimes things go wonky, but you still get something nice out of it. And, you know, maybe the leaves aren't quite what I wanted, but we still got, there was still overall improvement, I think. And that's important. You know, even when you've been doing this for a while, is sometimes you're going to have things be odd, and it's okay to be like, you know, that's all right. You know, I still had improvement overall. So, lessons learned. I'm gonna see if I can get this music going again. Anyways, it's been a quiet night, and I still want sound. Some sound, any sound, please. Okay. If not, we'll just have quiet night, take 2. All right, so what I've got going on right now is these 2 panels, and I used an old technique that I used to use good, the music's going. Let me know if it's not loud enough or if it's too loud, because I can't always tell on my end, and last week it was a little too loud, but I think we're gonna be okay. And yes. So, and I'm trying to control it on my phone. We'll see if that makes any difference. Probably not. Anyways, so when I was younger, we used to do this kind of technique all the time because it's really fun to do when you have like little kids doing watercolor, especially. And I don't know why I just kind of stopped doing it, because it's such a useful thing to do even as you're older. There's so much you can do with it. Anyways, when the paint's still pretty wet, it's like when you're doing a wash and stuff, is you take just regular old cooking salt. So you would not use sea salt. Do not use sea salt. And you would definitely never use Epsom salt. Just like the regular old, you know, cook with it salt. And you sprinkle it in different patterns, and you can do so much with it. Usually we would like use it if we were to do ocean patterns and stuff, make little bubbles, things like that. You know, it's so much fun with kids, and you get them to make patterns or tie-dye, and it's just fun. But like, you can do so much with it as an adult too, to create these patterns and textures that I keep getting muck stuck to my watercolor. That, you know, it can keep pushing technique farther and even make it much, much easier to do things than you would have otherwise had to do, like the hard way. So honestly, we should just keep doing it. Okay, so I need to get the salt off. That was a lot of water all over the place. Okay. I'm gonna deal with that first because I am working on a wood surface and I don't want water all over everything. So hold, please, for water spillage. You'd think someone that wore glasses would have better depth perception, but nope. Okay, that's fine. Shizzle happens. Okay. So, everyone takes the salt off a different way. I like using a brush because then I can make sure I'm taking it off gently, and I just want to make sure that, unless it's really stuck like this, that I'm not taking off too much of like the texture of the paper. I just want the salt off. And then you can get like the top layers, the loose stuff of the salt off, and then you can go back with your finger and gently rub. And I'm having this paper towel here catch all the salt because I have the computer nearby me. Normally I just be like, blah, salt, who cares? And then just like vacuum it later, like whatever, it's just salt. But I don't want it like getting stuck in the keyboard and going down in there and like, who knows where that's going, you know? And I don't want that to become a problem. So as we're taking the salt off, it's gonna reveal the pattern that we created with the salt. Oh, sorry, this is like moving too much. There, that's better. Okay, now I'm gonna just like gently rub a little bit. Let me know if that's getting too loud too, because I know sometimes when you're doing salts, it will like, the microphone will pick up as I like stick my fingers up in there, sorry. And I can mute myself while I'm doing the salt, that way it's not too loud. Just gentle rubbing, because we want the paper to stay intact. Okay. And now that we've got a little bit off, we're just gonna brush. Because we want this all off once we go back and start painting. Just gentle little stuff. I don't know if you guys are seeing all the like little hairs I have on this. When I was painting earlier this week, my rabbit, Alchemy, who has black hair, it's probably why you can kind of see it, like leapt up onto my lap, and I was like, oh, how sweet. And then later, I was like, oh, now it's all in my painting. She's molting right now because we're having a bit of a heat wave here. It's that, I don't know if any of you guys are in SoCal or have ever been to SoCal, but certain times of the year we have what we call Santa Ana winds. It's just kind of a local phenomena. We're not the only region that has something similar, but that's what we call ours. It's just because of the air pressure that happens certain times of the year. The winds will blow from the desert westward instead of from the ocean eastward, the way they normally do. And so we get all of that kind of yucky, dry, super hot winds. And don't get me wrong, it's February, so it's not that hot in the desert. But it's still like 75 degrees Fahrenheit in February, which is not normal. So that's what's happening right now with us. And I've had like 3 nosebleeds today, so that's fun. Okay, so that side's done. Yes, that was time consuming. But I did salt like everywhere. So good news is the other side is not so time consuming. Because I only did like 2 piles of salt. Okay, that was actually really fast. I must have done this really well on this side. I feel like the other side stuck really hard. It's not supposed to stick that much, but sometimes it does. Maybe this side was more wet than it should have been. Who knows? Okay, got a little more stuff here. Kind of liking these patterns. I think this came out really well. What do you guys think? Thoughts, comments, concerns, questions about salt and always blow your art trash away from you, always. Or onto your lap if you're working with another person across the table from you, because that's good art manners. Just in case any of you all take art classes. Now you know. Okay. Salt is released into the netherworld. Okay. Got a little bit on my computer, that's fine. Alright guys, so what we're gonna do on this side is a little bit of like a tree situation, but I feel like I've left you all in the quiet for so long as I dealt with the salt that I'd like to do just a little bit of a pull from the jar, especially since last week we didn't get to do a whole lot of stuff with the jar situation because they weren't really my characters. I ran the campaign and I did throw a lot of homebrew in there, maybe a wee bit more than I should have, but it definitely was not my characters. So let's see what we can pull here. Okay, question number 1. How did I name my character? Okay. You know me and puns. Alright, so small background on Adda. She originally was not my character. Is Corey on tonight? I'm not sure. I haven't actually been paying that much attention to who's watching. But so Adda was originally a one-shot character that Corey put together using the concept of what if we were all bad guys? And she was a bard. I didn't make that up. I didn't change that. But she... Do I want to use this one? Maybe we'll try this one. I'm trying to think how thin I want my lines. Nope, I want the other one. I lied. I don't know what I want. I'm being indecisive. And so I picked that particular character because I'd never played a bard before, and I was just sort of feeling fancy. I wanted something different. So I picked that character, and the character was originally named Bix. Did it have a last name? I don't think Bix had a last name. I think it was just Bix. Anyways, every time I hear Bix, I think Big Spiderback, which that's not correct. That wasn't the character's name at all. Anyways, that's a jazz musician. Now I'm thinking about jazz. Sorry, it's one of those days. And after that one shot, how the story kind of happened out of order. I really connected to the character in a way that I hadn't had happen after playing for only one. How do I put this? After playing for only one time like that, normally I have to work really hard to connect to a character and their background. Some people have to work harder than others, and I don't really see that as being a bad thing. When I first started playing tabletop role-playing games, I had to work exceptionally hard. It was stupidly challenging to play anything, to roleplay at all. And so when I was able to step into the bard almost instantly during the one shot, it was a very strange experience in a way, because I wasn't expecting to be able to feel much of anything during a one-shot. Certainly not for a character that I didn't create at all. So that was a very pleasant surprise, and when that happened, I asked Corey if I could keep the character and keep working with it, and she was very nice and said yes, of course, your character, go nuts. I don't think she realized how nuts I would go. Sorry, Corey. So I went really nuts. It's been fun with that, and so then from there, I am getting to the point eventually. Sorry, it's just there's a lot of background here that has to be dealt with first. So from there, we did eventually get to the point. Just kidding. I did eventually end up sort of making the character a little more my own. We leveled it up a little bit higher, so then I got to pick a college. I picked College of the Road, and I don't know how many of you were asked to read certain medieval history books when you were in middle or high school. Would anyone remember the book Adam of the Road? That's A-D-A-M. But that was, I'm trying to remember who wrote that. Was that Chaucer? I see it on my shelf right now. But that was one of my favorite books growing up. Happens to have a bard in it. And they're traveling around England and experiencing history, and they're just having a grand old time. And I loved that book as a kid. Yes, I'm that nerd. And so when I started building up Adda as a College of the Road bard, I was just like, she's traveling around and she's learning things, and all she does is want to collect knowledge through these traveler's tricks. And would it not just be like the coolest thing ever to have her be Adda, literally, of the road? Like, let's just sort of yuck it up here for a second and play into this for, half a mo. And yeah, it's silly, it's kind of dorky, we're gonna laugh at ourselves, like, ha ha ha, the nerd. But, like, it's kind of fun to have kind of something that's just you being a goofball. And that's me being a goofball, is Adda. But, in some ways, she's a little bit like having your own avatar in the game. If there's such a thing as a D&D avatar. I don't know if there is. But, that's a just between us secret, by the way. So, don't go telling everybody that. Up until today, only one other person knows that Adda was my avatar. The game that kind of built her a little bit off of me. So congrats, you all know a super cool secret. Okay, so I'm putting in, I don't know how well you guys can see this because it is tiny, and I wish I could zoom in, but this particular camera doesn't really let me. So I'm gonna kind of pick up and show. I'm putting in tree branches, and I will do a better picture later when you can see things more clearly. I'll show you each panel separately because I know it doesn't pick it up particularly well. Certain fine lines, you're just like, nope, no thank you. Try. That's the one thing I don't like about this fine line brush, because Raphael brushes are very nice brushes. Don't get me wrong. I love them to death. But it does seem to dry out really fast. Like if you're just chatting it up over here, like I do, and then you're not paying attention, like I never am, and then you're just not working on it. Does this brush have glitter on it? Oh no, is this the brush I was using to... Oops, I probably forgot to take the gold off. Oh well. Now they're glitter trees. Shit. Oh well. It's fine, guys. We're just having like a month here with all the different situations we're getting into. Things. It's fine. I'm sure it's fine. And sometimes it's nice to like take branches really up high too, because some trees will have really, really tall branches just all the way up, and you can just really show how things are going with the tree by bloop. That was not enough water on that, unfortunately. That's okay, we can take that. That's what's fun about doing nature, is there's, like, when you make kind of a wonky mistake, you're like, ooh. Just like, you can buff that out. It's nature. It's fine. Nature doesn't care. It really, really doesn't care. Like, seriously. Okay. I may need to let this dry for a second, but let's just see how we do. I'm kind of liking this whole, like, we made a tree kind of vibe. It's kind of fun. Mystery trees hiding in the thing. I'm like not even gonna get to the other one because I'm just having so much fun here. Okay. So I'll pull this up so you guys can see my tree branches. Different tree branches. This is definitely kind of a happy forest. Okay, I might need this brush later, so I'm gonna let that kind of dry out for a second because I'll make sure that one's good. And then we're gonna start in with a little bit of shrubbery and stuff. So I'm gonna need some green here. Pull in some green. I've been mostly painting right straight off the palette because I don't need a whole lot for washes and stuff. So I know you guys don't really get to see me mix a whole ton tonight. Sorry. Okay, so we're just gonna do a little bit here. I just kind of want to make it seem like shrubbery pattern that we created when we did our salt is actually a tree line, so we're gonna kind of emphasize that by creating some of these fine lines here. I can always go back in and add stuff with like a fine marker and whatnot. But we're just kind of give this an illusion of like, you know, being shrubbery. It's shrubbery. Okay, just a little bit of texture and shrubbery to things. Not a whole lot. Just a little bit of like drawing things out. Okay. And that's basically all I'm gonna do there for now. Until I've had more thoughts about that. Okay, let's draw another from the jar. Music's actually working. I should pull it off my phone more often. Alright, question number 2. Share a piece of lore. I don't really have much lore about Adda. Oh, okay. So, I did mention that she started as a one-shot character created by GM Corey, which is true. She is not my creation. She also continued on as a dedicated one-shot character. That was a sort of tradition or trait. Actually, I lied. I do want to add more stuff to this. That kind of was inspired by my friend Beth. Beth had a dedicated one-shot character, and that was something that she did because she liked to put a lot of work and effort into her characters, which I thought was really cool. And so she wanted to be able to have this like really deep built up dedicated character that she could use for different things, right? And at the time I was like brand new to D&D, and I think a lot of us, when we're first into storytelling of any kind, we're very expressive, right? Like there's always those jokes like you move into different types of creativity and storytelling, right? Like you build certain kinds of characters throughout your life. You start with like building all the things, and then you work your way into building like the deep stories kind of a thing, and then you work back to plain sentient bread. I can't remember what meme that was, but it's hilarious, and it's kind of true. So at first I was definitely like building all the things, but I couldn't bring myself to build sentient bread. Sorry, I hate to break it to you. I never hit that phase. But I was definitely like building all the things. But I was doing it like in a, well, now I'm gonna build a character based on like what if fate was manifested as a being and they were a playable character. Poor Billy. I actually dropped that into a campaign. Shocks no one, it crashed and burned. Or like, what if they really were a tragic ranger with a horrible background, but then they learned to love themselves? By the way, don't actually do that. It screws with your psyche. It's like the worst thing ever. Or like one time I was like, oh, what if I created a character that was just, oh, I can't even remember. It was something completely insane, and it obviously died horribly, but stuff like that. And then I was just like so burnt out from creating these insane characters. And that's when Beth was just like, create a one-shot character and then you're done. You never have to deal with it again. I was like, oh, okay. And so that's kind of, it's not really lore, but that's sort of my one real lore for Adda, because she's a changeling bard, and you guys kind of already know the lore about changelings, so it's not really anything all that exciting to share that. But that's what I've got. So anyways, it's kind of what I got. I think it's kind of fun. Anyways, so yeah. Let's see if I can get this to go again. There we go. But I do think she's kind of interesting in her own unique, special way for doing that. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the these flowers here, and I'm gonna have to put in a little bit of gouache for this because I want the flowers to be really thick, so that we get this just right. Okay. So these are kind of, I saw this in a YouTube video and I have not tried this before for flowers. So we're gonna just kind of see how this goes. Apparently you're supposed to then just kind of streak it in like this. I don't know, this doesn't seem right. We'll see. I might have to do some cleaning up later, but apparently you just streak in a streak. This doesn't seem right, but okay. I mean, I guess it kind of looks like a flower. Alright. Streak. It's like the dandelion cock, as they call it. I have no idea why. It's supposed to be like blowing away, right? So it like doesn't quite look like a. That's why it's got the like. That's what we're supposed to do, I guess. Just keep streaking it in. I don't know. This doesn't quite seem right to me, but alright. It does look really pretty. I'll give it that. And then you're supposed to have like like when you do the stem's supposed to come this way. Okay, it's supposed to come like, oops, no water. Hold on. This doesn't seem right, but okay, that's what it said. And then you're supposed to have it like, is this like the head of the dandelion? I don't know. This just seems very strange, but whatever. supposed to use gold? Tentative. Sometimes you try new things, it doesn't quite work out how you expect, but we're gonna try it. And we're gonna have a positive attitude about it. Okay. I'm gonna have to revisit this. I just don't know. It just doesn't seem. I just don't know. I just don't know. Try something, see if I can turn this around a little bit. Sometimes instincts are best. Something seems off. Sometimes instinct fixes it. Supposed to be dandelions. They sure don't look like dandelions. But now they kind of do. Now they kind of look like dandelions. Actually, that looks kind of cool. That kind of like spreads out like that. Okay, I think to finish this up, I'm gonna have to let it dry for a bit and come back to it. One thing I am gonna add though is just this tiny bit of shade. Just a little bit of shadows. Okay. Alright, I'll let this dry. Come back to this, try to figure out what went wrong in there. Maybe rewatch that technique video a couple times. Sometimes the best thing to do is simply review your education, especially when you're trying something new. You never know. Not everything works out the way you wanted, but actually, I don't think it's completely gone wrong. I think we can recover that if we try one more time. All right, so we're gonna pause there for the evening. Wow, that is wet. And see how things go from there. Thank you for watching once again. I hope you enjoyed the story of Adda and our lovely little watercolor panels that we had tried with a review and assault technique. Next week we're heading into an entirely new world that we haven't visited yet. So for those of you who are familiar with the world of Zayathe, we'll be heading there. I hope you enjoy that, and that'll be the last character we'll be saying farewell to and honoring their story from last year. And from there we get to start some wonderful new stories after Genghis Khan, and we'll be starting off with someone I hope you all will enjoy on a very special International Hearing Awareness Day. So more on that next week. And of course, in 2 Fridays from now, it is Genghis Khan. So please remember that we will probably not be streaming that day, but we will try to have something planned for you all so that it won't just be a complete wash, because after all, you do hang out with us and we love that, and we want to give you something in return. So hopefully you all have a lovely weekend. Thank you for hanging with us, and as always, don't forget to feed your inner adventure mimics. Have a loveliest weekend, everyone.